Hi,
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. Can you see me all right, Dr. Armstrong?
Yes, I can, Laura. Yes, I can.
Thank you so much, Dr. Armstrong, for
You're-
offering your time for an interview today for our virtual choral festival.
I actually was born in New York City, born in New York Hospital, and when I was an infant, my parents moved from the city out to Long Island. I was a slightly rambunctious child. I thought I was better behaved than I was, but after my father passed away, we found all my elementary school report cards, and I guess I wasn't as well behaved as I thought I was. But one of the things that gave me focus as a child was music and was singing. And when I was 6 years old, Carol Weber, who was part of this couple that came to our church, decided that there were enough young children, more boys actually than girls, who could make up a children's choir. So she, kind of like Mary Poppins, kind of just came and grabbed us out of Sunday school, and we went and we sang in this junior choir. And I sang my first solo when I was 6 years old. And I can still sing that hymn. I won't do that for you all this morning, or this afternoon, but I can still sing that hymn. And she gave us wonderful training. So I grew up in a very rich tradition musically, this wonderful junior choir. And then when I was about 12 years old, um, well, actually, when I was 11 years old, a group that was then called the Columbus Boy Choir, but that most people would now know as the American Boy Choir, came to Long Island. And Carol thought we should go and hear that concert. And we did. And I kind of protested because I have two older brothers who are 10 and 14 years older, but they were going to a Yankees game with my dad, and I was supposed to have gone, and my mother said, no, we're going to go to this choir concert. And I kind of protested, more than protested. And my mother just said, you're going to be the death of me yet. Just go into this concert, behave. And after the first piece, after protesting for days, literally all the way to the concert, which was on the North Shore of Long Island, about a half an hour from where we lived, um, I heard one piece, and I said I want into that choir. They invited me to go when I was turning 11, turning 12, but it meant living away from home in Princeton, New Jersey, and my parents, we were not poor people. We were lower middle class, and my parents worked very hard to provide stable, a wonderful home and food on the place, but they didn't have a lot of extras, not certainly to send me in a situation like that. And so I didn't go at first. Um, and then I did something slightly underhanded. I basically forged a letter from my mother, which I believe the school still has in its file someplace, where I basically said that my mother and father had changed their minds about this situation, and if they would be open to talking about financial aid. The end result, I ended up going to school there. After not a long evening of, one should not forge other people's letters, one should not tell lies, one should not. But that experience, and I sang in the American Boy Choir for 2 years, and that really was the thing that lit my fire for choral singing. And the sun was bright and shining on this 8-degree day with just the snow frozen on the trees. Everything was white. And you get in there and the buildings are white. And basically the people were white. And the food was even white that day, because I still remember the lunch meal I had there was Swedish meatball, so that white gravy, mashed potatoes, and cauliflower. I thought, this is, and I didn't really know much about Scandinavian anything at that point. But I went throughout the day and the people were so kind. And as we talked, they maybe looked different from me, but their values were not different than what I was raised with in my Black home and my Black neighborhood. So they just looked a lot different from me. And I did keep checking my wallet because I thought people can't be this nice. They want something out of me. I met that day actually the man that was my teacher and the man I succeeded as conductor before. I met with Kenneth Jennings, and so I'm just completing my 30th year at St. Olaf. It's hard to believe, but I'm getting children of my first students are now in that choir, and yeah, it's been a good 30 years. It's been a very rewarding 30 years, and it's allowed me to shepherd a wonderful choral tradition, one that has been so influential in this country, and to respect, the foundations of what I inherited, but also to lead into a new chapter of serving people through the choral art. So it's been a wonderful. I've had a wonderful life. It's been a good life, and I have a few more years before I decide to at least stop full-time teaching.
So can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with Kim Andre Arnesen?
The Yentakor is a world-class choir. And so the Niros Domans Yentakor were featured artists in 2011 at the World Symposium of Choral Music in Patagonia, Argentina, Puerto Madryn. And they did a stunning concert, but the piece that really captivated me was a piece called Even When He's Silent. Mm-hmm. And it was just striking, and their performance of the work is stunning, and I fell in love with the piece. I've commissioned, I think, 4 or 5 pieces alone over these last 9 or 10 years. Actually, Flight Song is not a commission.
I was going to ask because it doesn't look like it was.
My birthday is April 26th. And and in 2014, I got a wonderful email from Anita Breivik and Kim together. And then I got a separate email from Kim. And he said, I wanted to give you something, and I wanted to make something special for you. And he said, see the attachment. This was the attachment. This is my birthday gift. So I copied it, I took it off, printed it up, came back to my studio and started playing it. And I just fell in love with it. And I sent it over to the print shop. I said, I need 75 copies. I need to read it through this afternoon sing with choir. And I called my student pianist and I said, I don't want you fumbling over this. Go in the practice room. And the choir sat right through this and fell in love with it. Just fell in love with it. And it's a piece that really speaks. He was trying to honor in his own way. He said, I was trying to honor what I saw the relationship between you and your singers. But what, and what he felt was the promise that young people this age have, but it's a promise that we have for a lifetime and what music can give us. So, I mean, while I've commissioned several other pieces that I've loved, this one will always be special because it came from his heart and it was a gift to me. And I'm glad that my birthday gift can make so many other people so happy. Kim is a very quiet person. He's a very shy man. He's not at all egotistical. He's very humble, very, very humble. And I think it takes someone like that. I was humbled by his humility that he could see the relationship. And I think many conductors that's one of the great joys of being a conductor of choral ensembles. If you're able to relate to your singers, it's a mutual synergy, that choir that sang in 2013. It's like, ask which of your children do you love more, okay? I basically, 30 years of singing with choirs, I've been 1 or 2 that, But I'd say easily 28 out of those 30 years, they've all been my favorites. But that was a very special choir. And we bonded, and that tour to Norway was incredible. What I've tried to instill in the singers over the years is that we do it and we work hard not to impress people, but that we work hard. And I kind of take this inspiration from the second conductor of this choir, Olaf Choir. You remove all the things that the human ear and mind can be distracted by. That if a chord doesn't tune right, or if that vowel doesn't sound right and the sound is not beautiful, or the text is intelligible, those are all the things that people will be bothered by. But if you can work for a level of excellence where those things are in place, then there's a stronger spirit that comes through the music. And for Olaf, it was a very religious man. For him, it was the Holy Spirit. I mean, I'm a religious person, and I do believe You know, when I've had some of my most wonderful feelings of connection to a God, an infinite being, singing in a choir and conducting a choir. I know that's not true for everyone. I never say you have to believe in this. I said, but just stay open. Just stay open to what this might bring you in whatever way you will understand it. And that is something that Kim picked up. I mean, he was around some of the rehearsals. He heard us do a concert. He was there as we were, because he was helping as we had to do this television special and Christmas special. But I think what he noticed was, you know, it wasn't me just nagging the choir. It was that they kept working for excellence themselves. Kim saw that unity, and then he heard it. He heard it in their singing, you know. You know, I don't know who will see this. People always think of St. Olaf, and one of the things they admire is the so-called blend. I never use the word blend. I don't talk about blend. I don't talk, if anybody says St. Olaf Choir doesn't sings with straight tone, then they don't know what they're talking about. We sing with a very unified vibrato that doesn't like smear the center of the pitch. But I never ask them to sing without vibrato. I never ask them to blend, because blend is an after effect. Blend is you know, you say something to blend, and if you could see my ceiling of my home, it's a wonderful white, but that's what I think of blend. It just whitewashes everything. I always like to think of choral sound as a wonderful tapestry. You bring all these weaves of voices together, and they're different, but if you line those weaves up the right way, they make this incredible, incredible, wonderful work of art. And that's what I try to do. And part of that is how I place the singers in the ensemble and listening so they have a balance and agreement of vocal colors, vocal timbres, quality of voices, and personalities. I don't just pick singers for a choir because they have beautiful voice. Yes, they have to have a beautiful voice, but there are a lot of beautiful voices that have gone through this program that they haven't had a servant spirit in their hearts. And I think that's also key at whatever age to make great choral music. I think they would all say one of the greatest lessons they learned from that is they learned to listen to other singers. And they also learned to believe that while they perfected their art to give their very best, it was as a gift to others. That their choral music, for me, we're at our best choral musicians when we give our art in service to others. And so I think a gathering like you're having right now, you know, and that you're doing virtually, but you would have had with Dr. Boris in person, is people coming together and not in competition, but to join their voices together, and something even more beautiful happens. And quite frankly, I know all of the warnings we have right now, and my colleagues and I here at St. Olaf and across the country are figuring out how can we put our groups back together. And number one will be the safety of singers. That will have to take primary consideration. But what we can already tell, and as wonderful as virtual opportunities to make a choral product, it doesn't replace being together in the room. It doesn't replace that energy and that power that you feel from being with another human being making music. And so for right now, you know, this is going to have to do. It allows us to keep our art alive. It allows us to create, but it is only a shadow of what's possible and what we need to figure out a way to get back. But to come back to this text a little bit more, I think this text, while he wrote it for young people on the verge of taking off in life, I think right now, as we get to this point and with this disease that is ravaging the world, we need to have hope. We need to have a sense of what is possible. And, you know, right now, that part of Ewan Tate's text where he writes, "The night is restless with the sounds we hear, is broken, shaken by the cries of pain." They have meant more to me because there's been, you know, loss of community, loss of being able to join our voices together. I've suffered loss of friends to this disease. But I think as he goes on and he talks, yeah, the sounds we hear, but always within that sound, it's music's inner voice saying, yes, we hear you. We hear those cries, but music will answer and allow us to return to life. And we will fly answering you, so our lives sing, wild we fly, wild in spirit we will fly. We're not going to be held down. And this song is, for me, is a sense of hope, is a sense of the light at the end of the tunnel. And right now, I know we all feel, at least I feel, and I know I'm not the only one who's felt like this, like we're in just this tunnel of darkness, but there is light and there is hope. And what I love about this is that for so many other singers that I've worked with, whether they're music majors or not, so many times they have found their heart's fulfillment in singing the texts that have been so beautifully set to music by composers through the ages. And often they haven't always had their own words, but when they sing a piece like this, all of a sudden, that's how I feel, And I think that is the thing that separates singers from instrumentalists. We have text. Our wonderful instrumental colleagues have, yes, music, and music is a great thing, but I think we have text. We have two senses that we can tap into. And when you get a composer and a librettist who can work so beautifully as the two of these have, and this is just a little miniature. My mentor in my adult years was a woman by the name of Helen Kemp. Dr. Kemp was known throughout this country, but throughout the world as one of the great vocal music educators for young children. And she didn't have audition children's choirs. She and her husband worked out of the church. And so she took everybody was eligible for her choirs. Her mantra was body, mind, spirit, voice. It takes the whole person to sing and rejoice. I first met Helen when I was 22. I just started running the camp I went to as a boy at the American Boy Choir School. And she was in the faculty she's a Westminster grad, and she and her husband had returned to teach there after a long period of time in church music ministry. But she was doing a summer course, and she had about 125 people jammed into one of the classroom lecture halls in Talbot Music Library. And I walk in, and at that point, Mama Helen must have been in her maybe early 60s. And she's going through, and they're all up, and Helen was, she believed in movement in a choir rehearsal. So they're going, body, mind, spirit, voice. It takes the whole person to sing and rejoice. And I was 22 years old, about 40 pounds lighter, and big old afro, sitting back there and thinking, that is the stupidest, cheesiest thing I've ever heard in my life. Well, Laura, I can tell you now, I was the stupid one. And that is maybe one of the most salient bits of information that has stayed with me, because I think what he captured in this text and what Kim must have felt in the interaction between the Salem Choir and myself was that, yeah, it takes the whole person. It's not just a set of vocal folds. It takes the whole person to sing and rejoice. And that's one of the things that we're missing right now as we have been pulled apart from our singing communities. So again, I think this is a wonderful thing that you and your colleagues have envisioned, how, most of us had to give up on things. But how do we do this? And so kudos to you and your colleagues for, saying, no, we can redeem something out of this, and we can provide light and hope for our singers, and a day when we can come back together and sing this song. But what a powerful and a beautiful thing. Think about Kim Andre's music. And I've told him this just in our conversation a couple weeks ago. His music continues to find freshness. Sometimes we can get very established choral composers, and they get into a little bit of rut. It's this person, it's this person, it's this person. And their trademarks, which are great, You hear Copeland's music, you hear those open fists, Okay. But with Kim, he understands a fresh language, but one of the things that this man knows how to do is to write a melody. All of his music. And, I grew up, in the 60s and 70s, and certainly when I was in college and graduate school, you know, and I've done enough post-tonal music in my life. And I can appreciate it, and I can be proud of the singers and that I've led who've done some of this music, and that our musical skills have allowed us to face a challenge and bring it off very convincingly. But I have to say, that's not the music that I'm going to remember in my old age. I'm going to remember when people have looked at the beauty of words and they've tried to let both the head and the heart respond. And for me, that is tied to melody. I've known Alice Parker over 40 years now, you know, and when I first met her, I thought, oh, she's a nice lady, you know, but what she has constantly pounded out, and you see that in these wonderful miniatures of her choral settings, melody, the importance of melody. And that's what eventually speaks to us as human beings. There are some of us who are very intellectual people, and I, you know, bless their hearts, as my Southern friends would say, just bless their hearts. That, you know, that's the thing that turns them on. Give me a good melody. And then you enrich that beautiful melody with just luscious harmonies. And that's one of Kim's gifts. And he finds his own ingredients to make something that's very distinctive for him. But every time I take one of his pieces up, and he's been very complimentary. He says, every time I hear you do one of my pieces, I hear things I never thought were even present. And I said, well, because there's a lot to find in there. And so, and I think sometimes it's a much more challenging thing to take a piece in a very small form and develop it. You know, if you have 3 and 4 or 5 movements, you have a lot more to give. Yeah, you have to find more material, but sometimes people don't. But to make it work and not make it sound like, and I also know some composers who it feels like they put the whole refrigerator in the stew. You know, it's too much. He finds a perfect balance of how to season his meal, and it's always tasty when it's done. As I said, I've taken this piece literally around the world. We've done it. I've done it in Scandinavia. I've done it in Korea. I took it last year to Indonesia. I was conducting the Indonesia National Youth Choir, and certainly throughout all states and honors choirs throughout this country. And at one point, I'll get to a point, because they start, and usually they come with the notes basically learned, but I said, I always tell them, I said, if I've given you this piece, it's because I believe you have the skill and the musicality to bring this piece to life in a beautiful way. And I said, because this is my birthday gift, and I'm not going to have you stomp on my birthday gift. So we work very hard, you know, and we just don't sing through a line, but we try to bring those words alive. You know, so when they sing, is broken, shaken by the cries of pain, I need the text to come through. I need them, but I also need them for this is music's inner voice. There's hope in that. We all suffer pain. We all suffer loss. But what is there to bring us through? If you give in to that pain and loss, then you haven't understood what the gift of music is. And Ewan Tate caught that in this piece, in this text that he created. Yes, honoring my wonderful students, but also I love, you know, like a feather falling from the wing, fragile as the human voice. And the way he goes just to these single voices. We have this very light, ethereal bird flying, you know, and just soaring. And let that human voice come through. And when they get over to, it's really almost a mantra for me at the end of this piece. Alive to love, we sing as love. We sing as love. Afraid, uncertain. And Lord knows we are in a time of such uncertainty. Yet our flight begins. And I think for those of us, you know, who maybe are in the latter stages of life like I am, there are days when I go, why didn't it wait like another 6 or 7 years as I was retired, you know? And then, I let myself get, you know, I do my woe is me bit. And then I started thinking, no, because you still have more to give. And now this is a time of renewal. And this is what I think this piece is about also. It's about hope. It's about light for the future, but it's about renewal. That I think sometimes we have to lose things to really appreciate them. We have, I think this generation sometimes has been a generation of entitlement, of feeling like they're entitled to things. And so many things have been taken away from us right now. And I think, I never thought I would be so happy as to say I can get a haircut. Well, in 2 weeks, I hope finally we will be allowed to have the hair salons opened up, because right now I have a set of headphones on talking to you, and I have mushed my hair down. And my days of having an afro are gone, and my hair though in the morning looks like Bozo the Clown, all right? But little things like that. And I think when we come back to our music making, we've kind of taken a lot of things for granted. And I hope when we are able to return and able to make music again in some way, person to person, it'll be a time of renewal, a time of gratitude for that personal gift of the human voice, the most natural of all instruments, and that we do this again because we want to share our gift. And what I've learned through the art of choral music, as I said, I was a kid who grew up, I would call ourselves lower middle class, but it was music that opened the world to me. I never had gone south of the Mason-Dixon line until I was 14, singing the American Boy Choir. My first time on a plane overseas was my last tour with the American Boy Choir to Italy. And we got to sing at the Spoleto Festival. We got to sing for the then, pontiff, for Pope Paul VI. I've sung at the White House twice as a kid. First time for Nixon, President Nixon, at Christmas, December 70. And then in 2005 for the National Day of Prayer with the Salem Choir. East Room looked like it shrunk from the time I was there in 1970 to when I was there in 2005. But I mean, the world of choral music has just opened my whole world. And to be able, whether it was in Australia or New Zealand, whether it was in Cameroons of Africa, whether it was in Jerusalem, whether it was in Latin America and Venezuela when I conducted the World Youth Choir, all of a sudden, I've crossed with so many different cultures, but music has been that bridge. And all of a sudden, the things that so often in the world of politics and everything else divide us, music has been the bridge to bring us together. I learned that firsthand in the 23 years that I've worked at the Oregon Bach Festival and its founders, Helmut Rilling and Roy Saltzman. A large part was, yes, the love of the music of Bach started that, but it was much more of bringing people together. And this is the first summer in 23 years I will not be in Eugene, Oregon, making music. I hope that we will return next year,
Yeah.
But when I have come to, where was this festival supposed to be held?
Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Yeah. What I remember coming to Wyoming, I think I came to do your All State in January, and it was cold and snowy, but it was beautiful. And when we started making music, I think some of your kids had never seen an African-American teacher. By the end of our time together, we were family. And they didn't ignore my race, but they saw me as somebody who was trying to help bring out the beauty in their voices. And that's part of what this song is about. And I hope that it's not just for young people, it's for people of all ages. And so I hope as you all sing this, even if it has to be virtually right now, that they can take that message of hope and that message of beauty and let it fill their lives at this time of uncertainty, that there's still time for them to take flight. Kim has become a dear friend, and I think he would be just so moved that you all, that this piece has come to mean so much to you and your singers. So this is a little piece of hope we give them and they give each other, and that we hope soon. I keep envisioning what it's going to be like when not only they let us sing in the same room, but you can actually hug each other. You can shake each other's hands again,
Oh
Those are
my.
the things that we took namaste goes only so far for me, you know. I'm a hugger. And and I miss that. So, but this project is a good thing, and especially in this time. And I wish you all the best. And thank you for asking me to be part of it in this way. And tell Dr. Boers I said hello.